not to, yeah.
So it's that time of the year again. Grand National weights were released last week in a really lavish ceremony that Timeform weren't invited.
I know we probably were invited.
Yeah.
It's a long way down in London. If it was in Liverpool where the race actually held, we might go there.
Yeah, so the weights were released, and Phil Turner, our senior analyst and Grand National specialist, is here to talk about our weight-adjusted ratings for following the release of those.
Yeah, and I guess we've had sort of a few ran last weekend, but there's been no real changes to the ratings. It is always the way. A lot of the sort of main hopes from the big yards have been keeping the powder dry, protecting the handicap mark, and a lot can sort of change between here and sort of the big race day. We've got about 2 months, haven't we? And like, obviously, any big performances they'll still be ring off the mark that were given last week. So it could change between here and now. But as things stand at the minute, it's quite tight at the top. But hopefully, we'll point a few at sort of decent prices at the moment who look value in the anti-post market.
Yeah, as you mentioned, and 3 at the top of the weight-adjusted ratings at the moment are 3 that you really like here, and 2 of them, Abolitionist and Sea of Midnight, are a pound clear of the other, Noble Endeavour.
They are, yeah. I mean, it should be said with Sea at Midnight, he's slightly different to the other 2 in that they've been off the track by design, Abolitionist and Noble Endeavour, because they've had plenty of racing at the time. Abolitionist has been bought specifically for the race. And so I wouldn't be too put off by the fact they've not run. Sea at Midnight, slightly different because he did pick up an injury late last season, but apparently he's fighting fit now, and he's got to run in a chase. I think the rules is he's got to run in one chase. I think he's earmarked in a race at Kelso coming up soon. But the rate, although he's top of the ratings with us, that could actually be a conservative view. He could actually be higher if you sort of take a literal view of some of his bits of form. Look, He's been an above average horse from very early on. He won the Rendlesham as a novice, and really, since then he's had lots of big performances along the way. He won the Dipper as a novice, and if you look at some of the names he's beaten Bristol de May, he's beaten Black Lion. I think he beat One for Arthur as well in his novice chase career. And just those 2 Nigel Twiston Davis horses, he's now set to get a lot of weight from them. Just looking at, without sort of going to the details of the form, that sort of CV of beating those horses, a BHA mark of 151, it could look quite lenient. And he's got the sort of, he's a willing sort of front runner. Touch wood, he's normally a pretty safe jumper, and you could just see him taking to Aintree. I still think it pays to sort of be on a sort of prominent racer. Brian Hughes normally rides him, as we all know. That's a real asset, and I just think, I think he's around 33s at the minute. You're taking it a little bit on trust that his fitness is there, but that's a big price given some of his form and his back thing. And of course, Scotland had the winner last year, didn't they? So they could have a second Scottish winner in 12 months. Yeah,
and it's nice to see that he's got national form in his pocket already, because he placed in the Scottish National a couple of years
ago. He did,
ago.
Under a big weight as well. And there's an argument, he possibly, the way he went through that race, you thought he might have finished it even closer. I think he made a late mistake, but no, he ticks a lot of boxes. The big hope is there's a slight doubt he has been off the track, but there have been positive eyes coming from the stable, and they're a smallish yard, but Sandy Thompson, he knows the time of day. They've certainly done very well with this horse, and I just think he's overpriced.
And another with national form is Abolitionist. Won the Leinster National, I believe, and he's now switched yards to a very shrewd one in Dr. Richard.
He has. Dr. Richard Newland, who of course won the Grand National itself with Pinot Array, a horse which had followed a sort of similar pattern. They'd picked him up from an Irish yard, and he's a horse with lots of miles on the clock, but he's good with these horses. That would put off a lot of trainers, but I think Dr. Newland, he views it a bit differently. He sort of says, well, at least I know that horse is sound, and hopefully I can get it fit and well, and I'll be able to sort of elicit better form out of it. Now, in fairness to Abolitionist trainer from last year, Elle-Marie Holden, she did really well with him. She actually did find some improvement with him. She got it from another yard, and in addition to that Leinster National win, he had a couple of really good placed efforts in similarly big, valuable handicap company. So even on that form alone, as you can see from our ratings, we think he should be in the mix anyway. And although there may not be quite the sort of scope you'd expect for improvement for the change of yards, it sometimes is the case with him. He's still got, most of the horses he gets from other yards, he manages to improve. So It's a very, very interesting runner, and as I say, this is one they picked it up last summer, and it's absolutely deliberate it's not run to protect it because they knew it's got a handy mark. Provided it sort of can find the form of last season, he should be banging the mix.
And a trainer to always note is Gordon Elliott, especially when he sends horses over here. He won the National in 2007 with Silver Birch. He's got quite a few entered at the moment. Bless the Wings, Outlander, Tiger Roll, but Noble Endeavour's one that's caught your eye.
He is. I mean, to be honest, you could make as is always the case with Gordon Elliott, you can make a case for loads of his runners, and he has got a block entry, and you can make a case for a lot of them. I just thought this fella, he's a horse he always sort of runs his race, gives you a good run for your money. He's twice been placed in valuable handicaps at the Cheltenham Festival. He won the Paddy Power Chase, which is the big, their sort of big handicap chase over the Christmas meeting last year, beating lots of sort of the names we've been on about. He ran well in the Irish National, finished behind Abolitionist that day and Bless the Wings, but again gave his running. And I just thought 33-1. A quieter campaign this time around in order to preserve his mark and just go for Aintree. I just think you're bound to get a run for your money. If he's fit and well, I can't see him being out in the first sort of 4 or 5, and with a bit of luck he might do even better than that. So just a horse he just knows how to run his race in these kind of contests, and hopefully he'll take to Aintree.
We've mentioned Elliott, we've got to mention Mullins. Now there's two horses that have been ringing alarm bells at Timeform for quite a long time, thinking that they're well treated, in Acapella, Bourgeois and Total Recall. It's sort of gone one way for one and one way for the other.
It's gone massively one way for one and for the other. Now they're the same connections, so I guess, let's be honest, you've got to have a massive question mark on Acapella Bourgeois, because he's bombed out the last, certainly the last day. It was running over a strange trip, but he was very, very strong in the market, and I think he bled. And I think I saw a quote from Patrick Mullins that they've drawn stumps with him for the time being. So I don't know how likely he is to run. Look, the form's in the book. He won a race in eye-catching fashion last year. Everything out of that race has come out and run well. Road to Respect, he beat by a distance. Annabelle Fly was further back in that race. They've both come out and won really big prizes this year. If he can recapture that, he's very interesting off his handicap mark. And it's a bit surprising that things haven't gone to plan with him, especially when you consider that his stable companion in the same colours, Total Recall, made the same stable switch and is a completely different proposition to what he was for his previous yard. I think a lot of us were thinking a similar kind of spike of improvement would happen with Acapella. It hasn't happened so far. So it seems like Total Recall's the main hope of that pair. But I just think although he's hugely progressive, and it's hard to sort of gauge how much further improvement might be there, but seems to be that they're going for the Gold Cup first, and I'm not sure sort of how certain the running will be. And he's amongst the favourites already, and I just think there are bigger prices out there. But of course, the case is there. He's unbeaten since joining the yard, and he was chucked in over hurdles last time, but just the whole way he went through the race, it just looks like he's got a massive engine all of a sudden.
So, as you'd expect with a 40 runner handicap, there's plenty of recognisable names in here, and to string off a few, Definitely Red, Black Lion, Cello Conti, Gasline Boy, they've been here before. The Last Samurai, rude to leave him out. Are any of these sort of ringing alarm bells as potentially being well handicapped?
They're all sort of competitively handicapped, if that makes sense. They're not far off top. As I say, it is quite close sort of towards the top of the range, which I guess you'd expect in a race like this. And I know a lot of people do like having sort of previous course experience, view it as an asset. The only thing I would say against that is that increasingly, I think you should view the National like it is sort of just a valuable handicap chase, and don't ignore the handicapping side of things. Yeah, right. It normally goes to the best treated runner. Now, some of the names you just mentioned, I actually think the Last Samurai has been shaping very well this winter. Although he bombed out in last year's National, I think that clearly that was an off day. Pretty much, other than that, he's been very, very reliable since joining that yard. And he's got runner-up in the National 2 years ago, and he's got 2 placed efforts in the Beecher. I can definitely see him running his race. I thought he ran very well at Cheltenham last time, and we know the stamina is basically his forte. He'll be sort of staying on at the death, but I just think there might be just 1 or 2 better handicapped to sort of pip him, but I can certainly see him running his race. So he's probably the ones who's sort of been there and figured prominently before. who I probably side with. You mentioned Definitely Red. It's similar camp to Total Recall, and I think the Gold Cup's the first priority, and I guess we'll see what happens after that. He's actually one of my favourite horses in training. He's just so likeable, and again, staying is absolutely his forte, but he just, for all of us who backed him last year, you think that was the chance. Look at the mark he's on this year compared to that. He's top weight, and I'm not saying he can't win a it, but it's a much bigger ask this year than it was last. Which were some of the names you mentioned there? Black Lion.
Yeah, Black Lion, Gasline Boy,
Yeah, well, but see, both of them, they've both won there. They were fourth and fifth in last year's national. They both come out and won the Beecher and the Grand Sefton in the autumn. So we know they like the course. The only thing I would say, and this is like being ultra critical, they didn't quite last home in last year's national, and although there's definitely a case that Black Lion was sent for home a bit too soon, I think if you go down through the years, he still didn't quite last home, and even under a slightly more conservative ride, something at the back of my mind suggests that still might be an issue come the running. So, look, we know he likes the course, and I wouldn't be too put off by his run at Haydock last weekend, but I just think he's plenty short enough, given those fears, when there's some of these horses we've mentioned are perhaps double the price.
And we'll close on what was the story of the Dublin Racing Festival, really. Ed Wolf, he obviously came back he nearly died at Cheltenham last year. It's some rise that to be put in the weights where he is for winning the Irish Gold Cup. Is that too hefty a mark for him?
Well, I mean, in fairness to the handicapper, it's like he has won a Grade 1 with sort of lots of horses with proven Grade 1 form. So, and in fairness, if he took out the horrible incident at Cheltenham, he had sort of been an upward curve. So it's not the greatest leap to think he could run to a figure in the mid 160s. And he's in with a chance. Obviously, it would be a concern what happened to him at Cheltenham. It's a hot day over a long trip at Aintree. Would something similar happen to him? Obviously, we hope not. I know a horse you quite like, Old Tiger Roll. He was going to beat him that day. Regardless of what happened to him, and he shot clear. I mean, he's got the swiggle. I think he fully deserves it with the Timeform swiggle, because he's very, very in and out. And I wouldn't be backing him myself, but he's been trained for the race. He's not the biggest, but if he's on a going day, he could sort of, he's a 2 times Cheltenham Festival winner, and he actually bombed through that race last year, the National Hunt Chase, despite the fact he hit a few, but he was still sort of running. But I'm sure anyone who's backed him down the years, they can cite numerous other occasions where he doesn't travel with anything like that zest or jump anything like well enough for the National. So it's a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde when it comes to him. He won't be carrying my money, but it wouldn't be the biggest surprise if he's swinging away 3 out. Yeah,
that was my thoughts with him. Just, you sort of know what you're getting with Tiger Roll, but I just thought he was on a nice mark considering what he had done. But at the same time, you could watch Tiger Roll, he could fall at the first, he could pull up, he could anything like that.
It depends, sort of like, I mean, in fairness, if you get sort of strong, stable vibes, because they were very keen for him before the National Hunt Chase last year, and if you got something similar this time around, I suppose that could be significant, but not for me. But it wouldn't be the biggest surprise were he to run a race.
We'll almost leave it at that. I'll give it any more you want to talk about. Gold present for the Nicky Henderson yard. He didn't run on Saturday, but
no, we probably should mention him actually, because he was unlucky. I think he got brought down at the Canal Turn, or knocked over at the Canal Turn in the Topham last year. But I actually do like this horse. He was a bit quirky in his earlier days, and but he's sort of putting it all together now. And I think both of his wins, Newbury and Ascot, just recently, I think he had more in hand than the bare margins suggest, which is good for a race like the National, because there's probably there was something left at the end of both those races, so that gives you hope that he'd sort of last out the longer trip. And although he had that non-completion in the Topham, I actually think his jumping is his asset, and he's quite safe as opposed to being bold. I could certainly see him jumping round and giving you a good run for your money. But as I say, he missed an engagement last weekend with a stone bruise, so I suppose that's a slight concern. And if there was one other, we should say, because of the way it's framed nowadays, it's a combination of like horses on the up, and there's a big chunk of horses who've got good Grade 1 form from sort of early in the career, and they're slightly on the downgrade, and they're sort of towards the top of the weights. There's probably about, I don't know, half a dozen up to about 10 of these in the current lineup, And what usually happens is that one of them revives to something like its previous best, and if they do, they're potentially very well handicapped. So I should just say that the horses like Carlingford Lock and Sub Lieutenant, you don't have to go all that far back in the form, probably about 12 months, 18 months, and you can find a piece of form where they're actually the best handicapped horse in the race. And if you wanted to take a leap of faith on one of them, certainly Carlingford Lock. Sub Lieutenant, there'd be doubts about the trip with. There wouldn't be with Carlingford Lock. I guess sometimes even in his prime he might get too far back in a national, but he'll stay, you'd have thought, and he's probably currently available at 50, 66 to 1. So just to mention, as I say, it's like there's a reason they're not rated top, because recent evidence suggests they're not capable of that sort of form. But if the different tests for the national revive them, then, and it has happened. I mean, it happened with Rule the World to some extent, or going even further back, Lescargo would have fit that profile. They do crop up and sort of, sometimes it arrives them.
Great, well, thank you very much for that. And you've written a full preview on Timeform.
I believe so, yeah.
So you can catch all the top 20 and the adjusted ratings there.
Yeah.
Great stuff, thank you.
Cheers, Nick.